Join us and help us continue to support the many talented people of our community. Learn how to get your business highlighted on La Crosse Local. Go to lacrosselocal.com and click on Advertise. The Frozen River Film Festival is taking place February 5th through 12th in Winona, Minnesota. Nearly 50 feature and short-form documentary films that will take you to the heart of current events, the forefront of social change, and distinct cultures in an increasingly global community. For tickets and more information, visit frff.org. Join us at the La Crosse Winter Roots Festival Saturday, February 11th at the La Crosse Center. We'll celebrate Wisconsin favorites in music, cuisine, local beer, and spirits. Grab tickets at lacrosselocal.com. We got to talk with jam band legend Chris Castino of the Big Woo. We chat about solo albums, musical collaborations, early musical experience in college, jumping around from jam band to bluegrass, including his recent album, Fresh Pickles, in collaboration with bluegrass favorites Chicken Wire Empire. Chris will be playing with the Chicken Wire Empire at the 2023 La Crosse Winter Roots Festival, February 11th. You can find more conversations, food reviews, live music, weekend picks, and events on our website, lacrosselocal.com. I'm Amy.
And I'm Brent.
And this is La Crosse Local.
Kangaroo, I'm betting on the off track, on the off chance you left the outback. My kangaroo, kangaroo, jackrabbit in a bushwhack decided to give you your bounce back. My kangaroo.
Oh, I was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I was lucky because my mom and my dad met actually as performers in a singing group. It was like a pop vocal group that was playing at nightclubs in Minneapolis and St. Paul and surrounding areas in the late 60s. And both of them were really talented singers. They went on to do some musical theater. So I didn't realize growing up that other people had different experiences than I did. But of course, like as I grew up, people were like, wow, your parents were like performers and actors and stuff like that. And it dawned on me that that was pretty cool. I mean, it was not a typical growing up. I was listening to some of your podcasts, and some of the guests on your podcast talked about growing up in a house with music in it. And certainly I think we all have that experience, whether it's driving in the car with our parents or our own records or tapes or CDs or whatever, however old you are. Mm-hmm. Those moments when it was really important to you. Sometimes music hits you when you're an adolescent or something touches you. But for me, I was exposed to tons of music, and none of it really was anything like the music that I play. That kind of came differently. And I think there was a part of me that wanted to, probably as a teenager, when you grow up listening to, Broadway and singer-songwriters and classical music, a lot of stuff that I like today. But back in the day, I was into like heavy metal, gangster rap. Those were in those kind of teenage years. And then I sampled a ton of music. I think I have a real fascination and love of music. It seems so magical to me. Yeah, I'm completely enamored with music and the art form. I'm so grateful to be somehow embedded in that life. I really feel lucky.
My own experience, you're talking about riding in cars, listening to music. I remember very vividly your song, from the Big Woos. Big Woo being played continuously in the cars that we go for cruises and drives. You started Big Woo at about 19, right? Was it really that early?
It blows my mind. But yeah, we did get together our freshman year of college. It's Northfield, Minnesota. It's actually kind of south of the Twin Cities, more towards you, but St. Olaf College was the name of the spot. They have a pretty impressive music program there, but it's choral for the most part and orchestral. I wasn't into that at the time. I regret that now, because that would have been another cool experience to be in a choir, because that's its own magic right there. But yeah, I was 19 years old at St. Olaf College. met the guys. Part of growing up for me was music lessons. And to all the parents out there or whatever who have kids and they're trying to get them to go to music lessons and stuff, I always suggest that you kind of force that issue a little bit, because how many times do you run into someone that said, oh, I remember I took piano lessons as a kid and then I just kind of stopped, and I wish my parents had made it a bigger deal. My parents made it a big enough deal so that I played the violin as a kid, and learning a string instrument for me helped me. And then we'll go back to your first question here too. It's like I was a kind of a shy kid, and we moved around a lot from the big city to a small town. Then we moved back to the big city. So we bounced around even within the kind of metro area of Minneapolis and St. Paul. I was in different schools a lot, which is a challenge. And I'm not really shy, but I'm introverted. I can kind of sit back and observe things. And I was really grateful to have music in high school as a way of forming friend groups of guys, as it happened, that we had a lot in common, and we would get together and we play music, and we kind of felt like, oh, okay, cool, this is our group. We feel comfortable in this social group. When you go to college, you're fresh out of high school, and boom, I meet the guys in the Big Woo, and I felt like, oh, cool, I've met my people here. And little did I know, that that we would become brothers and live our lives together, and our families are all close, and it's really deep. There's a lot of roots there for the Big Woo for me.
With your time at St. Olaf, did you ever hear of the band Chris and Johnny when you were there?
Oh, of course. Yeah. We knew those guys well. They were an inspiration to us because
Really? Oh.
yeah, they were like a couple years older than us. So, I mean, we looked up to them. They were really great writers, singers, guitar players. They could do it all. Their harmony were great, very creative. They put on a really good show. It was important for the Big Woo to have a group. And I know a lot of people may not know Chris and Johnny, but I wonder if their music is even on Spotify. But they were really great. They were a really great group. Two guys playing guitar and singing and harmonizing, just really a classic setup like that. And they did it really well. So, of course, I remember those guys very well.
They're on Spotify as Story Hill. They
Right.
continue to play. I just thought it was funny just because I hear St. Olaf and I got to chat with those guys. So it's interesting that there was an influence there.
Does their Spotify include their early stuff as Chris and Johnny? Do you know?
I believe so, but if you look up Story Hill, you can find all those like Ways and Means or whatever those albums were called.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I recommend that to
earlier
anybody. Ones. That's a deep dive right there. It's great though.
So kind of like myself, I think you're a little bit older than me, but kind of growing up with that sort of jam band, which was kind of big in the late 1990s and early 2000s. I mean, was that time from your, kind of like your influence? I think Bonnaroo was coming around where, you talked about heavy metal, the different sort of influences that you've kind of utilized in some ways to kind of move on with this album like Brazil. Because, looking at your kind of back catalog, felt like there's wide genres from like the jam band thing to ultimately Brazil coming out in some ways.
I picture you high on a hill above a market in Brasilia, where the lows that make you ill will fail to kill you.
The record Brazil for me was, songwriting can be many things. It's such a mystery to me. I never really consider myself a songwriter because I feel like it's more of a spiritual thing where you just have to allow energy to move through you. And if you're lucky and you do work at it, things can happen, but there's no guarantees. And I went through some challenging times in my life, in personally, and some people around me as well. I was really struggling with it all. And the Brazil album most of the rest stuff on there, some of it was just kind of had existed before and I included it onto the album, but most of the songs on there were really just the ways for me to heal through a hard time. I got a lot of encouragement from my family that, hey, these songs are really cool. I think people are going to like them. I don't know if they're going to, I don't know if the Big Woo fans will like it per se, but somebody's out there is going to connect with this music. And it's really crazy. It's so great when you write something that really is meaningful to somebody. It's an amazing feeling. It's really all that you need as a songwriter, to have somebody be really, really moved by something you do. And I think that record had a little bit of that effect on it. There's some stuff with the backbeat and that has more drive to it, but there is some more there's some stuff that touches on lyrically, some more deep issues of life and death and substance abuse. And so I needed to get that out there. That was something that was in me, and I needed to share that. And I don't know if I have another one of those records in me. I don't know. Who knows? Like I said, it is a mystery. You just got to open up to it and just kind of let things happen. But then I did the bluegrass record after that, which was so triumphant. I had, maybe it was just like, hey, I've come through some things, and I was in a pretty good place, and it's been really fun since then. But the bluegrass music was started to get into in college. Actually, I started to get into bluegrass music quite a bit. Maybe it was 93 or 94. I was listening to a lot of Fish at that time. They would do parts of their set once in a while where they'd all pull out bluegrass instruments and play a couple songs, and it blew me away. I was like, wow, okay, they're on the same wavelength there. And then things started to open up, and I started to dig back into the roots of bluegrass and some of the origins and where all this stuff came from. And it was always important to me, but I was just a lover of bluegrass music. I really appreciated it. And I never thought I would be involved in it until I met Yonder Mountain String Band, when some of the early Big Woo family reunions, which is the family reunion, was a concert that we would do called the Family Reunion. These were really amazing concerts because we were a full-time touring band going across the country, and we would meet all these other jam bands. And like you said, this was a real high point in jam band history. There were really good bands all over the place. It was a really popular style. So we would go and meet these other musicians, and then we would bring them to our festival, and our fans would be exposed to these different bands. And one of them was Yonder Mountain String Band. And we actually played in Illinois, at the Navy Pier in Chicago. This was a really important show for both bands. We were both coming up really at the same time. We had very parallel paths. And so we became close. We were really sharing this experience together. Their trajectory went way higher than ours, which is awesome. But there was just that point where we were just like, we were just together. We were really tight. And Jeff Austin and I became pretty good friends at that point. There was a downtime in 2002, 2003, and we just kicked around an idea and made it happen of recording a bluegrassy, and it's not a bluegrass record, but an album of acoustic music with a lot of bluegrass instrumentation. It was called Songs from the Tin Shed, and I got exposed to some great players in kind of a Colorado bluegrass world. And I felt so lucky to have that. And it's really a great record. People still come up to me and say how much they appreciate that record. It's a good Saturday morning listen, I think, in a lot of ways. But that was my first exposure, and it wasn't until COVID where I called Jordan Kroger from Chicken Wire Empire, and it was a no-brainer. I'm like, let's do something. I was trying to write songs during COVID because my expectation was that this was going to be a great time for me to write music. But like I said to you, Brent, it's like, you don't know. It's so elusive. Songwriting is such a weird thing, and it's so elusive that you can work on it. You can write songs just out of sheer determination, but there has to be an element of the spirit moving through you And when COVID was happening, I didn't have it. It just wasn't coming. I was so busy. Things were so topsy-turvy for everybody. My kids were not going to school. I was trying to teach them things, keep them up to speed with homeschooling and like we were all doing. And there was nothing. There was nothing. There were no songs coming. And I said, okay, well then, we're going to record something. So this amazing bluegrass record with Chicken Wire was a reinterpretation of some of my popular songs that people that know my music will recognize. And those guys in Chicken Wire Empire who had earlier been in other bands, Steel and Strings, and was the band in Milwaukee that we had a relationship with. They were really young and they thought, they looked up to us. So they've been fans of the Big Woo since high school. This was a real treat for them. They were tickled to do this and very excited and enthusiastic, which was really helpful.
Speaking of the Fresh Pickles album, that was COVID proper. Or did you have ideas to work with them before COVID hit?
I did have thoughts of doing something with them, but I was always just a little bit too caught up in other stuff to really make that left turn. Yeah, it was all of a sudden when everything kind of grinds to a halt like that. It's easy to make a left turn when you've completely slowed to a stop. There's no rules right now. I'm just going to do this because I want to. And they were totally into it.
So you were passing files back and forth, or were you actually getting together during that time?
We worked on our own. They rehearsed in Milwaukee and tried to arrange these songs, which they did a beautiful job of. Some of these are Big Woo songs and most of them are. And so they were really able to do a masterful job of arranging them into music that sounds like cool kind of progressive bluegrass.
Start a pitch for the Rock Varens, 31 strikeouts, couple of wins. Batter helmets for the first 500.
In moments, it sounds like traditional bluegrass. Really cool. They did an awesome job with that. And they did that on their own in Milwaukee. They would send me recordings and say, hey, what do you think? And it was great. I just let them run with it for the most part. We did get together. And I remember it was like pre-vaccine. So, you remember when everyone it was a giant existential crisis and everybody was scared. So we got together with masks and stuff. Like the second time we got together, it was still kind of weird, but then we were just like, fuck it. I mean, I can't sing with this on and music is too damn important to me. And, so we just had to let it rip a little bit, but we were pretty careful. We would at least get tested before we met, and stuff like that. And then the other silver lining was that I started to contact people in the bluegrass world that I maybe had met once or twice through my musical career. Like I said, I didn't cross over in the bluegrass world professionally, except for the Jeff Austin thing. But we had played with Sam Bush and we had played with Peter Rowan. And I knew people that knew some other really incredible, Hall of Fame, Grammy winning bluegrass artists that most people recognize. And I wrote these guys emails. I play in this band called the Big Woo. I have this record. I would love to have you on it. It was really that simple. And sometimes I had to wait a while. Sometimes I had to write a second or third email, but there was an opening there. They weren't super busy. And all of these guys, Jerry Douglas and Tim O'Brien and Vince Herman, all of them, we're all on the same page of being able to record pretty well at home. We're all cool with that now. So I missed an opportunity to meet some of these guys that I hadn't met in person. I didn't get to, but we talked on the phone. It was really cool. And they're on this record. Their performances are just incredible to me. They give me goosebumps. It's so cool.
I know you played in different variations with Chicken Wire Empire, but you'll be playing with the Chicken Wire Empire at the 2023 La Crosse Winter Roots Festival, which is February 11th. So what can people expect from, your guys' live shows together. Those guys have toured around here before. I know you've been here in different variations with the Big Woo and Cheech at Dees Fest, but how do you guys commingle? What's that like?
Well, first of all, we're really thrilled to be at the Winter Roots Festival. I mean, the lineup is so cool. I can't wait to just listen to a lot of the other artists. Is it Buffalo Gospel? Are they there?
Yep. Yep.
Oh,
Buffalo
man.
Gospel. Yep.
Yeah, what a cool group. There's others too that I can't wait to see. But our Chicken Wire shows, I'm in awe of how good those guys are. They're jaw-droppingly good. To me, they are just as good as the J.D. Crowe and the New South stuff that I loved in the 70s and 80s, and some of the Tony Rice Unit music, and there's some David Grisman in them too. It's like they are that talented. It's incredible, and I try to just keep up for the most part, but I've done a good job keeping up. The banjo player John Pike and Ernest Brisbardis on fiddle. We have a really great bluegrass trio. It's the traditional bluegrass trio. They love and respect that form of singing, and they're really good at it. So it adds a lot of, like, even if you don't know bluegrass music, there's something about a bluegrass when it's sung in a trio like that. It just sounds right. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds legit.
You know, a few months down the road too, which is something completely different. I know you guys recently just sold out, you know, your show Petty Comes Alive. You'll be doing that at the Lacrosse Center April 1st. It says All-Star Tribute, which there's some big names on this list, including locally Greg Hall from Greg Hall and the White Wrecking Ball. I'm pretty sure I saw Scott McPherson with Elliott Smith back in the early 2000s.
Cool.
How did that piece to come together? Just always been a Tom Petty fan?
Honestly, I never thought I would do any kind of a tribute band. I think they're awesome, and they're very popular. And I know a lot of people that do tribute shows. I think I just always figured that my role in the world, the reason I'm on this earth, is to write music. But we do love Tom Petty. There's like a Zen quality to his writing. It's like mystical and simple at the same time. And it's so powerful. And the fact that we lost him so early and suddenly, there was just a void. It was kind of like when Jerry Garcia died in 1995, the Big Woo was playing music. We were just like getting established in the Twin Cities, and we just started playing. And it was such a huge thing for us to get fans, great deadheads. I will say about our Tom Petty show, it's not a true tribute. We don't dress like Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. We don't look like them, and we don't try to mimic all that much. We are true to the music, but this is a band of really good musicians. We'll open it up and be ourselves on stage and play the way we play, and then also try to get the classic, like, signature sounds and parts that you recognize from the song. Those are in there. I mean, it has the feeling when you hear The Waiting or one of those classic tunes. It gives you that comfortable feeling, but we're not playing anything note for note. We're all like songwriters in our own right. And so we do like to interpret the music slightly. The energy is really good. It's a real rock show, and you don't quite know which direction it's going to go. I challenge anyone to come to our show and think that they don't know Tom Petty music, and you'd be like, oh, I know 5 of those songs. Everybody does. It's so fun to play the music. It's special for us too, it really is.
Dipping into you, a little bit over the last couple of days before chatting with you, you have a lot going on. Big Woo 30th anniversary tour that you kind of been hitting on. 30 years, right?
Yeah, Brent. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I don't know what to say about it. We talked about earlier, it's like, this is such the entirety of my adult life, the Big Woo has been a part of it. So it's really special to me. The Big Woo has been a huge part of just my overall growth as a human being. Yeah, I love those guys. We'll probably do a couple more kind of 30-year anniversary things. We're kicking around some ideas. And the Smoking Bandits, they're going to be at the concert too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, those guys, we've had a lot of great experiences with them as well. It would be kind of neat to be playing with those guys again.
So, I mean, you got 30th anniversary, you got a couple new albums, you're doing your thing with, the Woograss, the Chicken Wire Empire. What's the best avenue for people to follow along with you? The website or social media? What are you active on?
I had to learn a lot of things, but I learned like Spotify, for example, or Apple Music, but I've been putting a lot of cool music on there. Pretty active on Facebook, getting events up and stuff like that. It's a good way to find out where the Big Woo's playing and where I'm playing. My website, chriscastino.com. I'm doing a lot of archival work of cool old Big Woo recordings from back in those days. And so I'm going to be uploading some really great live stuff that's like remastered, just to kind of celebrate the history of the band. So there's always new stuff coming there to listen to.
Lacrosse Local Podcast is a production of River Travel Media. Do you have an interview idea you'd like to share with us? Message us on Facebook at Lacrosse Local. Find out more about us at lacrosselocal.com, and you can subscribe to the Lacrosse Local Podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you like us, rate us 5 stars. We appreciate it.